Rest of the NL West, which includes those Arizona Diamondbacks, Tom. If we take a look at last year with those Diamondbacks, 80-82, not far removed from a World Series appearance, but certainly not making the moves you would want for a team that you anticipate to do a lot of damage. And also, can you fault them here? You're in an arms race with teams that you don't really want to be in an arms race with, and anytime you see the Dodgers as the top of your standings, you're always chasing those down. But the lineup itself, Perdomo here, Marte, Carroll, Moreno, Smith, Arenado into the lineup there as you saw that trade in January. Santana, Lawler, and Thomas. Some veteran mix in there. But it's one of those teams, Tom, that I look at that I will still be invested in because I do like the offensive structure here, but they play in the NL West, and there's no chance they can win that division.
No chance they can win that division. It's a good ballpark for hitting. We have to remember that Chase Field is actually the second highest. I don't know if it's still in terms of elevation. It was behind the Rockies. I forget where Sacramento lies for the A's, but I want to like the lineup. I really do. And, Corbin Carroll starting the year with the hamate bone surgery in his hand is certainly an issue. It comes down to me of what we get from Arenado, Santana, and specifically Jordan Lawler. Like, Jordan Lawler is a former first-round pick for the Diamondbacks. And, I jokingly say sometimes, though, the Diamondbacks hate Jordan Lawler because they call him up and they refuse to keep him in the majors. They call him up back and forth for the past 3 seasons now and have him play like 10 or 15 games, then send him back down. Allow him to stay in the majors the entire season and just run the course because you have to get him the experience. The top is great. Perdomo was unbelievable last year. Pavin Smith has some really sneaky power. Ketel Marte is awesome. Yeah. And then if you get Corbin Carroll doing his MVP type stuff, that's a fun lineup to bet into.
He made a couple of trades last year, but also you take a look at Ketel Marte. He was a hot topic coming into this offseason as a possible trade piece here. They kept him there, so that's good for that lineup here overall. They got some guys that can hit with power. They got some speed in that lineup and guys that can hit for average. But the question's always going to be is you're going to have to go up against the Dodgers, and is your pitching staff going to be good enough? Zach Gallen last year, 33 starts, 4.83 ERA. That's not what we used to see out of Zach Gallen here. Ryan Nelson, Eduardo Rodriguez, Brandon Pfaadt, and Michael Soroka in that lineup. A lot to be desired, Tom, from that starting pitching staff.
It's not good. They re-signed Gallen for the 1 year, whatever it was. Because the ballpark is so good for hitting, this is one of the teams where I'll always say it's like they can win games 8-5, 8-7. They're also going to lose games 9-7, 9-5, whatever it might be. But that presents a lot of opportunity for props. Like that presents a lot of opportunity for overs, especially late night overs, after on the West Coast, whatever it might be. But player props of a Perdomo, Ketel Marte, Corbin Carroll, HRR, I think are going to be plentiful this season.
Should be plentiful. Let's go over to the Padres, who at one time, Tom, we thought they might be able to go toe-to-toe with the Dodgers, and their owners were starting to spend some money until the Dodgers go, we're just going to outspend you and embarrass you, so stop trying to get new players on your team. But the lineup is always going to look good on a day-to-day basis for San Diego. Bogarts, Merrill, Machado, Tatis Jr., Cronenworth, Laureano, Sheets, Andujar, and Fermin. And they also get Nick Castellanos for about $700,000. If he can be anything off the bench, that could be worth it here for them. I've always liked the lineup for the Padres, and again, I'll like it again this year.
I would say the same thing. A part of me thinks I have like a weird feeling about the Padres this year where they feel like a team. And the most thing I would associate it with is the NFL, where it's like a team that constantly make the playoffs, but they can't get over the hump. And that's what the Padres kind of are, where it's like the luster is starting to fade from them. And if they don't remedy things soon, it's like I think there's going to be internal team issues no matter how good their players actually are from a skill level.
Hey, looking at that starting pitching staff here, Michael King there, 15 games started last year, 3.44 ERA. You take a look at Nick Pivetta, who had 31 starts and a 2.87 ERA, which they picked up here as a free agent the previous season. Musgrove, Vasquez, and also how about Herman Marquez? He's got to love the fact that he's out of Colorado and pitching in a true pitcher's ballpark. A 6.70 ERA certainly should be much lower, but it's not a pitching staff that I look at that I think I'm going to be able to lean on at this point. Mason Miller in the back end of that bullpen, you got to love that. Morajan, they're always going to be strong bullpen, but the starting staff is the questions here if they want to go toe-to-toe, or at least, Tom, try to make the playoffs this year. They seem like a playoff team in a tough division with a lot of talent. Just need to stay healthy, but I just don't know if that starting pitching staff eventually is going to be good enough.
Yeah, I would say it's fine. Like Marquez is a bit of a reclamation project, like you said, getting out of Coors Field. I don't think Randy Vasquez is good in any capacity. Joe Musgrove didn't pitch last year. So what we get from him is completely unknown. I think he is a good pitcher, but this is dating back multiple years of history, to find a decent sample size. King and Pivetta are awesome. Like, I think they're legit good pitchers, but that's just not enough in that division specifically. If we are expecting the Giants to take a step forward compared to last year, going up against the Dodgers, and then having to deal with, the Diamondbacks, who at least have a good offense, it's a tough spot to be.
I'll tell you, a tough spot to be if you're a fan of those Colorado Rockies, because this team might be able to set some records in futility. And I guess they're a big market in Denver, but they're like, well, we just don't want to compete and spend any money. This is the lineups that they get at this point here. McCarthy, Tovar, Goodman, Moniak, Beck, Castro, Doyle, Johnson, and Julian. We'll see if they can hit. Everybody usually hits in Colorado, but the question's always going to be for them, Tom, is what they get out of their pitching staff, which isn't very good. They actually picked up 3 free agents here in the offseason, Tom. Lorenzen, Quintana, and Sugano. Good luck pitching in that thin air here for this team. They're 60. I'm going to ask you this question too, Tom. 60 wins for Colorado. Do they get there?
I want to say yes. I really do, and I think it'll help the negotiations as well, as we talked about the CBA. Like, if they are so bad, like they're going to have to be extra measures put into place to compensate for these terrible teams that are sitting at 55 wins or whatever it is, because you can't just have this type of disparity in the league. So I want to buy in that the Rockies, the White Sox, the Nationals, some of these teams at least can push their way to 60-ish wins and not be so terrible. The lineup is what it is. They're going to hit when they're at Coors Field. They're going to give up a ton of runs. And when they're outside of Coors Field, they're going to give up a ton of runs and they're not going to hit.
Yeah, we're going to take a look at some of these division prices and win totals here in just a few moments. But it's just always that feudal team. It's a shame. And I don't know if baseball still can work in Colorado, because the free agents, and I always use this as hitters, yes, they're going to want to go there, but you still get that sort of asterisk next to your name. But can you imagine, Tom, and money is a motivating factor in a lot of these guys' decisions, but you also want to be legendary in the game itself. Like, let's just say, Tom, you're the best overall pitcher in baseball, and it's Paul Skeens. And Skeens goes, you know what, man, I'm going to take that $450 million contract with the Colorado Rockies. Well, you know what you can do? You're going to have more money they're ever going to spend generationally, but you'll never go down as one of the best pitchers in the game because you pitched in Colorado. So when they say, okay, you had the strikeouts, but, ooh, that ERA and, his whip was really high. Like, Tom, how can you have a baseball team operate in Colorado where you have to overpay for the prospects that you get, but also players just aren't going to want to come there? It's the only team in Major League Baseball, that has this issue.
It really is. And like, I'm not sure there is a true path forward for them for long-term sustainability, because push comes to shove, a pitcher they offer him a pitcher $10 million a year, or a pitcher can go somewhere else and take $7 million a year, but he's at least going to be on a somewhat playoff bound team. He's not going to get blown up start to start. Like, that is a factor. And then you're not going to be able to retain the prospects that you do have. Sure, as you said, hitters would want to go there, but at the end of the day, do hitters want to go to a team that they know is never going to be competitive? The World Series run that they had in whatever it was, 2007, 8, whatever that was, was a miracle. And we're just not going to see that again.
And it dates back a long time. If you remember, Mike Hampton, I believe he was with the Mets. Let me just see if I can get his numbers up real quick. Got him. He was in the Mets in 2000, who had a 3.14 ERA, got big money to go to Colorado, Tom. He lasted 2 seasons. His ERAs back-to-back, 5.41 and 6.15. He took all that money, but it's like, okay, I got money, but this isn't a lot of fun where, boy, I used to be able to get these guys out. My ball doesn't break as much in the elevation. The guys are just smashing home runs left and right, and the humidor is not making much of a difference. So I look at that and say to myself, like, Colorado, big market, beautiful ballpark, come enjoy the day, and we're not going to have very much of a team here because – and then again, Tom, by the way, when they spend money, they end up with Chris Bryant out here. It's like, yeah, dude, I don't even feel like being here at this point.
Yeah, the days of Larry Walker and Todd Helton are gone. Like, it was great to have those players there. They're literally historic generational players, but we're not getting more of them for the Rockies.
Yeah, Matt Holliday and the boys back in there crushing baseballs, Bichette, like the Walker. They had a lot of really good hitters out there. But again, the pitching has always been the issue out there for Colorado. We'll see if they make adjustments. And also, Major League Baseball, Tom, talking about maybe we're going to expand it into Utah. Don't do it. Be the same exact thing. It's elevation.
No way.
We can't have that here. You know what we're going to talk about next? Team totals for teams and who can win these divisions in the NL coming up.
Nick Kurtz will receive American League first place votes this year. You going to buy that, George? You want to sell that? I believe we had Caminero, we had Raleigh, we had Aaron Judge.
Bobby Witt. He'll be there as well. I'm a big fan of Kurtz. No, we're not related, by the way, for those who are wondering. Okay, not as far as I know. I keep getting that.
You're a little taller than him.
Right, just a wee bit. Yeah, Nick is a.
Be like this, actually.
I'm not sure Nick would fill in his room. Yeah, that's something like that. But my only problem with him, I think he's gonna have a great year. All right, I think he's gonna have a very good year here. He's gonna be fantastic. I picked 12 in my points league. If he's there at 12, I'm taking him. I'm just grabbing him here. I don't have a second round pick, but I'm taking him anyway. My only issue is this: they're not gonna be very good, right? They may be a little better than expected. Maybe they approach 500, maybe. But it's tough to get MVP votes when you're not winning. All right, you're not in the playoff contention or anything like that. Are you going to be able to beat out an Aaron Judge? I'll buy. I think he's going to have a big season. I think he can get one. I don't think he'll be very, it won't be top 3 or anything. I think he can get one. Yes, I'll buy.
Yeah, I'm going to sell this. I was really I understand what the metrics said, and a lot of smart people, George, that I asked told me that Judge probably was the MVP. But man, Cal Raleigh couldn't win MVP with that season that he had last year. And I understand all we're doing is asking questions about first place votes, but don't think there's a lot of love for the voters with Sacramento, no matter what Nick Kurtz does. I'm going to sell this.
Fantasy Sports Today, Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
NL East this year, Tom, should be a good one. If we take a look at some of the odds to win the NL East, we'll start there first. The New York Mets are the favorites, Tom, plus 140 price, followed closely by the Philadelphia Phillies at plus 185, and then the Atlanta Braves at a plus 220 price. If we're betting on who we think is going to win that division, Tom, who do you go with here? Because those 3 teams pretty close together.
I like the Braves personally this year. Like I said, I'm very high on them. Obviously, the injuries to the pitching staff, need to get sorted out with Smith-Shawver, and Schwellenbach. Getting those guys back would be huge. I think Matt Olson and Austin Riley are going to be in for bounce-back years. I like the lineup top to bottom. Ultimately, I would bet on the Braves, but the answer is not the Mets. If someone out there, and Donnie, you are a Phillies fan, but if someone out there is adamant about the Phillies and they like their price at plus 185, which is a very fair price, absolutely make that bet. I happen to like the Braves just a touch more. It's like a 1A, 1B, and this is specifically when it comes to a betting perspective. I think the Phillies are a better, more talented, well-rounded team. But the answer is not the Mets, not at that price. Absolutely no.
And also, the interesting part about it, too, is continuity does somewhat matter here. It's basically a new clubhouse, it feels like, for the New York Mets. But also, as Tom and I talked about multiple times, fielding their position and being comfortable. Hey, you can hit your way all the way through it. But if you can't field, you're giving up extra outs per inning to other teams. That's going to be a problem. I do think the Mets are overall the most talented team in the National League East, and the Phillies are bringing it back. And there are some question marks. Like if Andrew Painter, one of the best prospects in baseball, bounces back and is a really good pitcher for the Phillies, that's going to help. Jesus Luzardo has been very good for them. We said they lost Ranger Suarez. But also, if you are getting Zach Wheeler back and he's any semblance of what Zach Wheeler is supposed to be, that could give the Phillies a bump. But I do agree with how they're being priced. Mets, Phillies, and the Braves, all 3 of those teams, legitimate chances to win this division. And then we'll see what we get out of the Marlins and the Nationals, Tom. So let's talk win totals here, because we'll start with the New York Mets, listed at 90.5. That's a lot of wins here. That means you're going to be a playoff baseball team. They have the talent to do that, Tom. But it doesn't sound like, Tom, that's where your investment might go to, maybe a Mets over 90.5.
It would not. It would go on the under, if anything. Like you said, the new fielding situation that they have, I think there's going to be some real growing pains. Like we alluded to this before, like they're going to score runs. If they scored 5-6 runs in 15 of their first 20 games, I'm not going to be surprised. But I do think there will be growing pains. I think betting a Mets number potentially in season for a win total in season after we get through a little bit could be good. If you gave me an 86 on the Mets after a bit of a slow start, I would take that absolutely to the over. But a slow start and some growing pains, I think, is where the Mets would be. So under 90.5 is my initial lean.
Yeah, again, coming out like the lineup here, we'll see how it works out. Bullpen still is going to be solid, even though they lost Diaz at this point. But then you take a look at the Phillies and the Braves, almost side by side as well, similar to what the pricing we were talking about to win this division. The Philadelphia Phillies popping up at 89.5, and then the Atlanta Braves, Tom, following with 88.5. If we look at those first three teams in order, you say to pick 2 out of 3. I would bet the Braves to the over. I would bet the Phillies to the over, and maybe the Mets to the under. Not saying it would work out that way, but just from the price points that we're looking at, I do think the Phillies and the Braves legitimately are 90-win teams. But having said that again, if they're healthy, it looks much better. If they're not healthy, that's going to go up in smoke.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. The Phillies and the Braves are absolutely the betting options ahead from the Mets. And, partially I think that the Mets are booked at this price at plus 140 simply from a risk thing from the books where they can't have the Mets at 2-1 because it's too much reliability. So they just got to move it down just a little bit.
And by the way, looking at the Marlins in this lineup here, Tom, 72.5 wins. That does seem doable. Again, if Sandy Alcantara returns back to form, I don't need to be the Cy Young of the National League. Just return back to form. Decent players on that team and understand this as well. I said, well, wait a second, Donnie and Tom. You're telling me that you think the Braves are going to be good, the Mets are going to be good, and the Phillies are going to be good. That means that the Marlins, the majority of the games, are going to be playing those 3 teams, and certainly the Washington Nationals aren't very good. That's not the case anymore in Major League Baseball. Like, if you were telling me, like, back in the day, if it was American League and National League is separated, and you play each one of these teams like twice the amount that you do now you're saying, like, ooh, that could be tough for the Marlins. They'll be scrappy. They'll win their games. You're not asking for a lot, Tom. 73 wins in Major League Baseball isn't a crazy good season. That's a bad season. I think the Marlins can actually do that.
I would say the same. We talked about it last year, the way that they finished, especially on a hot streak. The young pitchers, I think that is the key sticking point for the Marlins. The 3 young pitchers, Perez, we're going to get Yuri Perez from them, needs to step up and get that done. And then the other 2, their names are escaping me despite the fact we just went over them. Those are the players that need to step up to get this done.
Yeah, take a look at that. Marlins, Alcantara, Perez, Paddock, Meyer, and Garrett to finish out that starting rotation, as we'll see how they actually finish there. Which then brings us to, Tom, value always in the eye of the beholder, because there are bad baseball teams and there's good baseball teams out there. And it's not like you come into the season, okay, everybody's at 80-win total, take the over or under. The Nationals will be bad, Tom, but 60 wins in Major League Baseball is like the baseline. You are a horrendous team, you're probably still going to win 60 games. That's what we're saying for the Nationals here. So if you're looking at 64.5, which means 65 to the over, would you take the Nationals, Tom, over or under this year with 64.5?
Under. And I think there's a legitimate shot that the best bet to make on the Nationals is to have the worst record in baseball, that they're worse than the Rockies, that they're worse than the Cardinals, they're worse than the White Sox. The Nats under their win total, and to be the worst team, have the most losses in baseball.
It's incredible as you look at it. Again, just going back to the Nationals' history of how much talent and how much winning they had on that roster, from a pitching staff to a bullpen, certainly to the middle of that lineup, the Bryce Harpers of the world, the Anthony Rendones. Now, granted, Harper turned out certainly fine in Philadelphia. Rendon took money and basically told you he hated baseball. Just pay me my money and see you later. There were so many good baseball players on that team here that sort of switched teams throughout the years, and now they're listed at a 64.5. So again, if we're looking at this lineup here, Tom, in the NL East, Mets is the favorites, plus 140, but not the odds-on favorite, still getting plus money. Phillies, Braves, Marlins, and Nationals. Is there a chance, Tom, that you look at that Miami Marlins team? Because we always see crazy things happen early in the season. Pitchers aren't stretched out yet. Teams don't know where their lineup is supposed to be. Could we see the Marlins be a challenge to the division at any part in the season, or are they always just playing that second fiddle? Because as we talked about, late in the season, they might be a thorn in the side, but can they do any damage, Tom? Talking April, talking May, talking June, in that direction.
I would say that would be the time to get it done, just because what we've talked about previously is early season. We see the teams working through the rotation and the bullpen of like getting those things set of like, oh, who's actually going to be our go-to guy in certain situations out of the bullpen. That would be the time for a team like the Marlins to jump out and pick up some wins.
Now, Tom, you're going to be ready for this one as we talk about the NL West coming up next with some of these team totals. You have the highest team total in Major League Baseball, Tom, but also the lowest team total in Major League Baseball way. Come find out who those teams are. We'll tell you next.
Nick Kurtz will receive American League first place votes this year. You going to buy that, George? You want to sell that? I believe we had Caminero, we had Raleigh, we had Aaron Judge.
Bobby Witt. He'll be there as well. I said I'm a big fan of Kurtz. No, we're not related, by the way, for those who are wondering. Okay, not as far as I know. I keep getting that.
You're a little taller than him.
Right, just a wee bit. Yeah, Nick is a.
Be like this, actually.
I'm not sure Nick would fill in his room. Yeah, that's something like that. But my only problem with him, I think he's gonna have a great year. All right, I think he's gonna have a very good year here. He's gonna be fantastic. I picked 12 in my points league. If he's there at 12, I'm taking him. I'm just grabbing him here. I don't have a second round pick, but I'm taking him anyway. My only issue is this: they're not gonna be very good, right? They may be a little better than expected. Maybe they approach 500, maybe, but it's tough to get MVP votes when you're not winning. All right, you're not in the playoff contention or anything like that. Are you going to be able to beat out an Aaron Judge? I'll buy. I think he's going to have a big season. I think he can get one. I don't think he'll be very, it won't be top 3 right there. But I think he can get one. Yes, I'll buy.
Yeah, I'm going to sell this. I was really I understand what the metric said, and a lot of smart people, George, that I asked told me that Judge probably was the MVP. But man, Cal Raleigh couldn't win MVP with that season that he had last year. And I understand all we're doing is asking questions about first place votes, but don't think there's a lot of love for the voters with Sacramento, no matter what Nick Kurtz does. I'm going to sell this.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
My goodness, the NL West, the haves and the have-nots. It starts right here, Tom. The Los Angeles Dodgers, the heavy favorite at a minus 700 price. And this isn't okay, well, the Dodgers play with basically 4 Colorado Rockies. They don't, Tom. The Padres are formidable. So are the San Francisco Giants. But the Dodgers are minus 700 compared to the Padres winning that division at plus 950 and the Giants at 17-1. And then the Diamondbacks, we're chopped liver, 22-1. And then there's the 300-1 Colorado Rockies. Let's start here with the division winner, the Dodgers, minus 700. Nobody really wants to lay $700 to win 100 and have it sit out there for 7 or 8 months at this point. But boy, it would be shocking for the Dodgers not to win that division. But it's not as if the Dodgers every single year, Tom, notch 110 wins. They didn't last year.
Oh, they didn't last year. And there was a point in what was it, mid-August, where the Dodgers and Padres had a series, and it was within one game. The Padres had a chance to take over the lead of the NL West. Now, obviously, we know how things turned out, but this is just not a market you can bet into. I think the win total market for the NL West is far more interesting. And the easy answer for me is that the Dodgers win the division, but they still fall under their win total.
Yeah, and we're going to get to those win totals in a second. It's hard because the Dodgers are such a juggernaut. When you look at the lineup, it's like, how can it not provide? But then again, last year, you thought they would run away with the National League in the regular season, and they didn't at that point. Phillies and the Brewers certainly had better records than the Los Angeles Dodgers. But if you did, Tom, just from that betting angle, hey, quarter unit Padres, quarter unit Giants, quarter unit on the Diamondbacks, somebody chased down the Dodgers. It's almost like just taking the field with some really good profitability there. I don't even know if I can bring myself around to it because of how much a juggernaut the Dodgers actually are.
I would lean with the Giants just because that's the team I have the most faith in. But it's also to your point, do you want to bet $700 to win 100 and keep that locked up for 7-8 months? It's like, I don't want to bet $25 on the Giants and keep that locked up for 7 or 8 months when I could just use it on opening day or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's interesting there. But let's take a look at some of these team totals, Tom. And as we teased before the break, the team with the most wins in Major League Baseball anticipated, it's the Los Angeles Dodgers. And we'll start there with 103. Some people think they might be able to challenge the Seattle Mariners there as the best team overall in baseball history in the regular season. Some people actually thought that was going to take place last year. But there's ebbs and flows of a Major League Baseball season. How many wins you need in September? Are they, hey, we're 15 wins away, even though we're running away with this division, we're going to throw our best pitchers down the stretch. It's so hard to get 100 wins in baseball. We look at the Dodgers lineup and say, they should get 100 wins, Tom. But as I said again, they should have did it last year and didn't. 103.5 wins, Tom. Where do we go with that?
There's no way to bet the over. There really
It's
isn't.
hard. It really is hard.
There's so little wiggle room when you are betting the over on a number such as that. Like if you were to bet the over on a Giants win total, as we saw there, 80,
Yeah.
like there's still some significant room. There's wiggle room to work with. If the Dodgers go through a rough stretch, then all of a sudden they're going to be projected for 99 wins, 98 wins, 97 wins. And 97 wins will still win them the division pretty comfortably, probably, but you're going to be behind the 8 ball. So any slow stretch for a team that has that high of a win total is going to put you well behind. And it's just not something, again, I want to have locked up for 6, 7, 8 months to get minus 110 odds on. That's just what it comes down to.
No, you're right about that, too. And you take a look again, the 103.5 number is very high. Can they get there? Of course they can. But you're looking at maybe a team that's going to win around 100 games. I don't think they're going to have to push late in September just to win that division. Means they have to get 107, which means that the Padres, the Giants, and the Diamondbacks was right behind them with triple-digit wins on the season. So that brings us up to our next point here, Tom. You look at the Padres at 83.5 win total. You look at the Giants at 80.5, and then you look at the Diamondbacks at 79.5. Those are really good numbers. And the point I'll keep drilling home, Tom, it's not saying, well, the Dodgers in your division, you got to play them. You have to play them some, but you don't play them 24 times during a season where it's like, hey, there's no way I can win my win total. Like, there will be balance. I think, Tom, there is value on those next 3 teams under the Dodgers.
It really is. I'm going to keip saying the Giants at 80.5, over 80.5 for the Giants.
Yep.
They have a good lineup. The rotation's good. It's not great, but I like where they sit. I like the number that they have. I think they're due for some positive regression. And, it's not like they're playing, again, all their games, the NL West. They're going to play against the NL Central, against the NL East. They're going to have some easy matchups across the board. And, I think there's enough wiggle room that they will improve compared to last year, can push to the mid or upper 80s. I'm not saying it's going to be sweat-free. It may come down to the last few weeks of September, but I think they'll get there.
So I know you like the Giants here. If I gave you all 3 of those teams, Tom, Padres 83.5, Giants 80.5, and Diamondbacks 79.5, would you make any other moves on there, or is it just the Giants through at the 80.5?
Under on the Padres would be the spot to go for me. Again, something feels weird about the Padres where they haven't put the pieces together, and it's like they're missing their window, and this is where we see the internal strife start to. But you can only run it back, Tatis, so many times.
And it feels like a team, Tom, of the Padres that if they're not playing very well in the first half of the season, maybe they trade some of those pieces. We'll be right back.
Nick Kurtz will receive American League first place votes this year. You going to buy that, George? You want to sell that? I believe we had Caminero, we had Raleigh, we had Aaron Judge.
Bobby Witt. He'll be there as well. I'm a big fan of Kurtz. No, we're not related, by the way, for those who are wondering. Okay, not as far as I know. I keep getting that.
You're a little taller than him.
Right, it's just a wee bit. Yeah, Nick is a.
Be like this, actually.
I'm not sure Nick would fill in his room. Yeah, that's something like that. But my only problem with him, I think he's gonna have a great year. All right, I think he's gonna have a very good year here. He's gonna be fantastic. I picked 12 in my points league. If he's there at 12, I'm taking him. I'm just grabbing him here. I don't have a second round pick, but I'm taking him anyway. My only issue is this: they're not gonna be very good, right? They may be a little better than expected. Maybe they approach 500, maybe. But it's tough to get MVP votes when you're not winning. All right, you're not in the playoff contention or anything like that. Are you going to be able to beat out an Aaron Judge? I'll buy. I think he's going to have a big season. I think he can get 1. I don't think he'll be very, it won't be top 3 right there. But I think he can get 1. Yes, I'll buy.
Yeah, I'm going to sell this. I was really I understand what the metrics said, and a lot of smart people, George, that I asked told me that Judge probably was the MVP. But man, Cal Raleigh couldn't win MVP with that season that he had last year. And I understand all we're doing is asking questions about first place votes, but don't think there's a lot of love for the voters with Sacramento, no matter what Nick Kurtz does. I'm going to sell this.
Fantasy Sports Today, Friday starting at 3 p.m. only on SportsGrid.
As bad as it gets, people. It's Donnie Rightside and it's Tom Vecchio. And you might wonder, like, hey, guys, you're talking about some really good baseball teams out there in the NL West, but we saved a special spot in our hearts for the Colorado Rockies, Tom, to win their division. Yes, it's not a misprint. They are 300-1. Not the World Series, Tom, not to win the pennant, to win their own division, which then you say, well, how bad could this baseball team be? Have you watched them the past couple of years? And now you look at their team total, Tom. As like, it's supposed to be like a benchmark. Like, you get the SAT, you sign your name to get like 500 points. Like, you should be able to sign your team in baseball and get 60 wins on the season. Well, we're looking at a 55.5 win total for the Colorado Rockies, Tom. So the question I need from you is, can they get over 55.5 wins? Oh, my goodness.
43 and 119 last year with a negative 424 run differential last year. 424 minus differential and runs last year is unbelievable. They had 60-plus wins in 2024. I would like to think that simply based on baseball being a highly variable sport and the variance that we get, they will be due for some regression towards the mean from 43 wins last year. And does that mean it's 10 wins? Does that mean it's 12 wins or 15, obviously pushing towards that 55.5 number? I want to say they get there. I really do. I think it's needed for the health of the sport to not have a team be historically bad in back-to-back years. So I am hopeful they get to over 55.5. I am not betting on the Rockies, though.
Like, you look at, like, most teams in Major League Baseball, like, okay, bad pitching staffs, right? I see a couple teams that gave up 800 or so runs last year. The Rockies gave up 1,021 runs. Now, granted, they play at Coors Field, so that gets exacerbated a little bit. But understand this, too. The level of depth of how bad they were, Tom, they were 25 and 56 at home, which is bad. But, it's a little bit quirky here. So the true level of a team is, let's just play on the road, but we're going to play at normal ballparks and not up in the air. Let's put our talent versus those teams' talent. No quirky environments. They won 18 games on the road last year. They were 18 and 63 on the road, which is unbelievable to think about. And then we see this 55.5 time. We go like, that's ridiculous. Really bad baseball teams always win 60. And then you point out they won 43 games last year. And you're coming into the season maybe with a worse team. There's nowhere to go from up for the Rockies, but it's incredible that you see a win total listed there at 53.5. Let's move on here, Tom. The NL Central winner, which is the favorite right now, plus 115. It's those Chicago Cubs, followed by the team that won the division last year and had the most wins in baseball, the Milwaukee Brewers, Cincinnati Reds, Pittsburgh Pirates, and the St. Louis Cardinals at 30-1. The Cubs is the favorite, Tom. I agree. They're the best team in this division. They should be able to win it.
I would say the same thing. I think it's interesting to point out that the Brewers, who had 97 wins last year, the most in baseball, like you said, are down to 84 this year. So 85 gets them over. They're still 12 wins behind where they finished last year, which I think should tell you enough about, the roster for the Brewers that we spoke about, the pitching staff, and just the lack of significant moves that the Brewers didn't make in the offseason. As we always joke around, I was like, spend more than $1 in free agency and you'll actually have a chance to compete for the division. I think the Cubs are the best team, top to bottom. I like their pitching. We also forgot to mention when talking about the Cubs and their pitching staff, Justin Steele, who had Tommy John surgery, is expected to be back in May, June, whatever it might be, but he makes them that much better. I think the Cubs win the division. I think it's that clear. I don't think the Brewers are a playoff team. I think the Cubs will be the only playoff team from the NL Central. We will see the others from the NL East and the NL West.
I think it's funny, too. You look at the Cubs here. I do think they're the best team, and I'm with you. I think they win the NL Central. Plus 115 price here says that they're the favorite, and I do think they do some damage. It is interesting, though, Tom, because you say you're like, okay, the correlation would be win your division, you're probably going to win 90 games. And I just told you, I love that lineup in the pitching staff. But, Tom, I look at the 88.5, and I feel like it almost feels perfect. Like, I figured they'll be in the high 80s, might not get the 90, but I think they do win the division. Am I wrong for that thinking?
It really comes down to what we see from the Pirates and the Reds, because the Cardinals are going to be terrible. Like I said, they're going to finish last in the NL Central. But if the Reds take a step back from being a playoff team last year and the Pirates just can't put things together, the Cubs could win the division with 87 games. Like that's a very real possibility. They actually win the division, but they fall under their win total, which is not going to happen very often for too many divisions. But I think 88, it's perfect. Again, if the Cubs start slow and you want to take an in-season position on over 86.5, 84.5, sure. If they start off too hot, you can get an under 93.5, sign me up for that as well.
So if we're looking at the division itself, Tom, right? Cubs plus 115, the favorite in this. So Brewers plus 230, Reds plus 400, and Pirates 7-1 at this point. So you're saying you'd rather take the Reds and or maybe the Pirates over the Brewers in that division? Like, if it's not the Cubs, who is it then?
I would buy into the Pirates. I would just buy into having a long number and they go on some magical run, and then you just have an amazing hedge or cash out opportunity, whatever it might be, knowing you can buy back into the Cubs at a greater price for a lower unit, and then you could just sell off on the Pirates because it won't be sustainable for them. They won't make enough moves at the deadline, but at least you have like the early number on them.
Now, the Brewers usually do have a pretty good track record. They did lose Peralta here, but I still like that lineup 1 through 9 and a decent semblance of a bullpen. So we look at that total, Tom, which last year, again, most wins in Major League Baseball. Usually it's like, okay, we lost a pitcher here. Okay, they were supposed to be 92. Now we drop them to 90 or so. That's a huge drop from the wins last year to this year. So there's usually something to that. And we always talk about okay, what's Cal Raleigh going to do? Hey, it's 60 bombs last year. Where's he at this year? 55 and a half. Like, no. We're barely expecting that guy to hit 40 home runs this season. So that drop-off for the Brewers tells me it's one oh, wait, they won X amount last year, Tom. They should easily be able to get to 85 wins. If you're just reading that line with that drop, you probably should be on a Brewers team total under, to be honest. It's just the way it reads to me.
That's exactly the way to put it. Like, there's just too much of a movement to buy in. Like, we talked about this with the Orioles last week, where it's like their win total is 10 wins better compared to where it was last year. And granted, last year they were terrible. They made some good moves in the offseason, but that seems just like a bridge too far that you're going to buy into a team being 11 wins better. Unless they can end up being there, it doesn't mean I want to bet into it.
Yeah, look at the other team, like the bottom of the division last year, which was the St. Louis Cardinals, Tom, 78 and 84. And then the Pittsburgh Pirates at 71 and 91. I look at that Pirates lineup, and I actually think it's decent here. So I look at that number, 78 and a half. Like, why can't the Pirates battle for that final wild card spot where they're not shutting anybody down? Maybe they're 2 to 3 games back with 3 weeks to go in the season. Am I wrong for liking the Pirates 78 and a half to get to 79 or 80 wins here? I do think they're a borderline playoff team, which means you're going to be around 80 wins. I think they can get to that number.
I think they can get to that number. Yeah. I don't know if they're a playoff team. Again, I think it comes down to the Phillies, Braves, Mets, Dodgers, Giants, maybe the Padres. I just think there's too much talent outside of it. And again, I think the Cubs will be the only playoff team from the NL Central. That's my prevailing takeaway for this division.
Let's get to the Cards, Tom. 78 wins last year, 78 wins and 84 losses. Not a great baseball season for them. Lineup looks subpar. Pitching is going to be a question mark here. But again, they're not listing every team at 80, and that's the benchmark. 69 and a half for the Cardinals, who won 78 last year, Tom. That's a crazy fall off here. And again, 70 wins is a terrible baseball team. What do you think about the Cardinals here? Not challenging, obviously, for the division, but can they get to the 70-win marker?
I think they can. Like, and again, 70 puts them still as the worst team in the NL, or the NL Central, as I've been saying. And if the Pirates, even if they just hit their win total by 1 and end with 79, they're still, 9 games ahead of the Cardinals. Again, what we just spoke about with the Brewers, I think the same thing would be true about the Cardinals. Like, that much of a drop off from the wins that they finished last year to their current win total coming into this season. It might tell you to bet the over just because it's too much of a drop-off, right? And we're not expecting a 15-game difference. Could it be 5, 6, 7, 8 games? Sure, but 15 would be too much. And that's where I am with the Cardinals. I think the over it could be a fine play since it's only 70 wins, but I'm not willing to bet it.
Yeah, it's a tough one when you figure out because it's hard sometimes just for the common handicapper to say, this team's really bad, let me take them to the over, and realize like a good series for the Los Angeles Dodgers is winning 2 out of 3 games. Like that's the benchmark, which means those bad baseball teams still have to win some of those. Last year, winning the division, the Philadelphia Phillies with 96, the Brewers with 97, and the Dodgers at 93. It feels like, Tom, I'm going to ask you this question after the break too. Think about it. Like, who do you think in these divisions, Phillies, Brewers, or Dodgers, don't end up winning it? Interesting stuff. We'll be right back.
Nick Kurtz will receive American League first place votes this year. You going to buy that, George? you want to sell that. I believe we had Caminero, we had Raleigh, we had Aaron Judge.
Bobby Witt, he'll be there as well. I said I'm a big fan of Kurtz. No, we're not related, by the way, for those who are wondering. Okay, not as far as I know. I keep getting that.
You're a little taller than him.
Right, just a wee bit. Yeah, Nick is a.
Be like this, actually.
I'm not sure Nick would fill in this room. Yeah, that's something like that. But my only problem with him, I think he's gonna have a great year. All right, I think he's gonna have a very good year here. He's gonna be fantastic. I picked 12 in my points league. If he's there at 12, I'm taking him. I'm just grabbing him here. I don't have a second round pick, but I'm taking him anyway. My only issue is this: they're not going to be very good, right? They may be a little better than expected. Maybe they approach 500, maybe, but it's tough to get MVP votes when you're not winning. All right, you're not in the playoff contention or anything like that. Are you going to be able to beat out an Aaron Judge? I'll buy. I think he's going to have a big season. I think he can get one. I don't think he'll be very, it won't be top 3 right there. But I think he can get one. Yes, I'll buy.
Yeah, I'm going to sell this. I was really I understand what the metric said, and a lot of smart people, George, that I asked told me that Judge probably was the MVP. But man, Cal Raleigh couldn't win MVP with that season that he had last year. And I understand all we're doing is asking questions about first place votes, but don't think there's a lot of love for the voters with Sacramento, no matter what Nick Kurtz does. I'm going to sell this.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Tom, I was going to ask you a question right before the break here. Phillies, Brewers, and Dodgers all won the division last year. Of those 3 teams, who has the best chance to win the division and who has no chance to win the division?
Phillies, Brewers, Dodgers. I mean, the Dodgers have the best chance. That's an easy answer.
Uh-huh.
The Phillies winning it would not surprise me. Like I said, from a betting perspective, I like the Braves, but the Phillies winning it absolutely, would not surprise me. I just don't think the Brewers are going to do it. I think the Cubs are a better team, when it's all said and done. So Dodgers repeat, shocker. Hot take here. Brewers don't repeat, Cubs do. And the Phillies are certainly very much in the mix. I would put the Phillies realistically as like a 1A and the Braves as like a 1B and the Mets are 2, but it's not that far behind.
We'll know soon here. March 25th, going to be opening day, and away we go into the Major League Baseball season here. NL MVP. This is it. Like Shohei Ohtani is minus 135, Tom. And how many shows did we do last year going I can't believe Ohtani is plus money to win the MVP at this point. And it's like, that's only going to get worse and worse and worse. And it will. For me, the only way Shohei Ohtani doesn't win this award, Tom, is if he's injured for half of the season. Minus 135. You're crazy. Soto's good. Acuna, Fernando Tatis, Francisco Lindor. I get it. Ohtani's on the mound pitching and hitting at the plate. He will be the MVP. That minus 135 seems crazy to take, Tom. But I don't think it is. He's going to be the MVP. He just is.
There's only one scenario that I've said for over a year at this point where a player can challenge him. And, we said it countless times last year, Donnie, as soon as Ohtani steps on the mound, he's going to win MVP and it's all locked up. The only circumstance where I truly believe a player can contend with him to win the MVP is if Ronald Acuna does what he did in 2023, which is when he went for 41 home runs, 106 RBIs, and 73 stolen bases. So some player, or it has to be a Schwarber who has 65 home runs. Some player has to do something so dramatic at the plate that they can supersede and unseat what Ohtani is doing at the plate and pitching. Because, Donnie, even if Ohtani has a quote-unquote down year at the plate, and let's say he has 38 home runs and 90 RBIs, if he's doing that while pitching, he's just going to win the award. It's that simple.
No doubt he is. Like, when I look at, again, Juan Soto is fantastic. Can he win the MVP? Of course he can. Ronald Acuna Jr. the same way. But when I try to get value, Tom, and not even on this list, he's actually still at 30-1, though. A guy like Ellie De La Cruz. Steal me a ton of bases. Have that power, Tom, where I get 45 bombs. And also the extracurriculars. Give me the Reds challenging the Cubs for the entire season. Like, I'd rather take a chance on Ellie De La Cruz at 30-1 than Mookie Betts at 30-1, even Bryce Harper at 30-1, or Kyle Schwarber, because I think he can have those other metrics like, holy cow, look at what he's doing as opposed to just hitting home runs and what the Reds are doing. I think Ellie De La Cruz may be worth a shot. You say, well, he can't win that. Well, he's the type of freak show that might be able to do some freak things to sort of move up if you get me.
That's what I was making with Acuna. Going 41 and 73 is bananas. Having an OPS over 1,000 is what you need. Like, you need to do something so dramatic that you are breaking, tying records, along with having team success, which will absolutely go a long way in the conversation.
And again, getting to the NL Cy Young award-winning market, again, we have some fantastic upper echelon guys like Tarek Skubal, in the AL, looking for a three-peat like he's the Dodgers out here. Paul Skeens wins it last year. He's a plus 250 price. Yamamoto behind him, Tom, plus 550. Sanchez, 71. Hunter Green, 10-1. A lot more opportunities in this market, I think, to make some money than, let's just say, the MVP market, which will be just saturated with Ohtani. But Paul Skeens is that dominant pitcher. Paul Skeens still is in Pittsburgh. Is that the go-to guy again this year to go back-to-back?
It really is. From who I would pick to win, Yamamoto is obviously another easy answer at like a 1B when it comes to the NL Cy Young. Does that mean I want to be betting at a plus 250 or plus 550 number? No, of course not. I think I would even shy away from Yamamoto at plus 550, given what we've spoken about with the Dodgers, knowing when it's all said and done, they won Yamamoto healthy when it's October 1st, not September 1st. Right. So if Snell comes back and then they ease off of Yamamoto, they ease off of Glasnow, that would not surprise me. And then from an innings and just raw numbers perspective, Yamamoto will never match Skeens. Logan Webb would be the option that I would take a shot on. I truly think Logan Webb is one of the best pitchers in the NL. Now, I think Chris Sanchez is a better pitcher compared to Logan Webb, but where the odds sit right now, Logan Webb would have the most interest for me.
For me, if I'm taking behind Paul Skeens, like Yamamoto's certainly going to be great, but as Tom points out, sometimes you say, he's on too good a baseball team. It is what it is. Christopher Sanchez now probably going to step into that ace role for the Phillies at 7-1. He was fantastic last year. But another guy, Tom, talking about Cincinnati Red, you see it at 10-1, Hunter Green. You get those Reds are good this year, and he is that power pitcher and found his form. Those are the fun guys that you can bet because injuries are always going to play a piece. How about Chris Sale? Bouncing back this year, still listed there at a 10-1 price. Does make a little bit of sense here, Tom. I know you love this category. NL Rookie of the Year. And a guy who, if you're just watching the first week or so of spring training, Connor Griffin is your favorite here at a 3-1 price. Nolan McLean, young fireballer there at plus 370. Weatherholt, saw him go yard already in spring training at a 5-1 price here. But Connor Griffin, that rocket ship there, Tom, at 3-1 for the Pirates.
This is an awesome list. Like, this is truly an awesome NL rookie class this year. And assuming all these players make the opening day rosters, which they all should, this is a great class. And we have a good mix of power bats with Connor Griffin, great pitchers. We got a little, sample up from McLean. Weatherholt could be the only bright spot for the Cardinals this year because they're going to be terrible, as we mentioned. Seeing some power from Bryce Eldridge for the Giants would be good. Bubba Chandler, if he makes his name for himself in the Pirates and can kind of be the Robin to Paul Skeens' Batman, that would be interesting to see. Pater and Crawford, the two Phillies. I think Connor Griffin's the right answer. And this is one of the things where we're never going to get a big number on it. It's never going to be, better than 3-1, even if he doesn't make the opening day roster, which would be an absolute travesty and a mistake by the Pirates if they were to do so. He's still the right answer. And we're going to get to this conversation where, he's plus 200, he's plus 100, he's minus 150. That's the path that Connor Griffin is on. And it's going to be the Ohtani odds from last year when it comes to MVP. It's like, he's the option. It's never going to be a great number, but it is what it is.
It is, too. And I take a look at some of those pitchers here with chances. Again, Nolan McLean, you got Bubba Chandler, as you point out, 12-1, and Andrew Painter at 25-1. They're always interesting because when you have the pitchers, you want those pitchers to be in Major League Baseball all season. Barring poor player injury, they will be. It's always interesting to me with some of these younger hitters, like, don't start his clock or don't bring him up. Like, there's always some of those shenanigans here. But we saw last week, guys like Nick Kurtz just come out of nowhere and just absolutely pound the baseball here. That's going to be hard to overlook. But a lot of talent here coming up. And yes, Justin Crawford there, the Philadelphia Phillies, expected to be their day one center fielder. You have a good start to the season, those numbers will increase. He sits at 20-1. Let's put a cap here on the NL next. Coming right back on Pro Baseball Today.
Nick Kurtz will receive American League first place votes this year. You gonna buy that, George? You you want to sell that. I believe we had Caminero, we had Raleigh, we had Aaron Judge.
Bobby Witt, he'll
Bobby
be there
Witt.
as well. I said I'm a big fan of Kurtz. No, we're not related, by the way, for those who are wondering. Okay, not as far as I know. I keep getting that.
You're a little taller than him.
Right, just a wee bit. Yeah, Nick is a.
Be like this,
I'm
actually.
not sure Nick would fill in his room. Yeah, that's something like that. But my only problem with him, I think he's gonna have a great year. All right, I think he's gonna have a very good year here. He's gonna be fantastic. I picked 12 in my points league. If he's there at 12, I'm taking him. I'm just grabbing him here. I don't have a second round pick, but I'm taking him anyway. My only issue is this: they're not gonna be very good, right? They may be a little better than expected. Maybe they approach 500, maybe, but they're not, it's tough to get MVP votes when you're not winning. All right, you're not in the playoff contention or anything like that. Are you going to be able to beat out an Aaron Judge? I'll buy. I think he's going to have a big season. I think he can get one. I don't think he'll be very, it won't be top 3 right there. But I think he can get one. Yes, I'll buy.
Yeah, I'm gonna sell this. I was really I understand what the metric said, and a lot of smart people, George, that I asked told me that Judge probably was the MVP. But man, Cal Raleigh couldn't win MVP with that season that he had last year, and I understand all we're doing is asking questions about first place votes, but don't think there's a lot of love for the voters with Sacramento, no matter what Nick Kurtz does. I'm going to sell this.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Right back in here, Pro Baseball Today, final segment of the day. March 1st here, March 25th is opening day in Major League Baseball. Putting a sort of a bow here on the National League. We'll start with those division winners, Tom, and get those finalities here and take a look at who we think is going to win the NL pennant, which there is a heavy favorite team. No surprise here. NL East, Tom, the Mets, plus 140 price. Phillies, plus 185. Braves, plus 220. For me, I actually still would lean towards the New York Mets at plus 140 to win this division. I do think the Phillies and the Braves will be close. I'm a little worried about the Phillies. If things go well like last year, yes, they can win that division if they stay healthy, but it's just like an eerie presence around the Phillies running it back. The Braves, we'll see if that pitching staff can stay healthy. I'll take the chalk here, Tom, plus 140 with the Mets. How about you?
From a betting perspective, I like the Braves. I think 220 is a really good number and the price to get on them. The Phillies are my pick, though. I do think they are the most well-rounded team. They need some things to fall into place, no doubt, as every team had said about the Mets and the Braves. But give me the Braves from a betting, Phillies from a picking perspective.
Central here, the Cubs, the favorite at plus 115, followed by the Brewers, the Reds, the Pirates, and the Cardinals. For me, Tom, I do think the Cubs are the best team start to finish. They'll win this division, but it'll be interesting to see who finishes second and what we make of the Brewers this year, Tom. Who's your central pick this year?
It's the Cubs. Plus 115 obviously isn't a big number. The implied probability of that is, just under 50%, but it's the right answer when it comes to the NL Central. Again, I'm low on the Brewers this year. I think the floor for them is much lower than people realize. They need a lot of pieces to fall into place. They need 3 young pitchers to step up, and they have a good lineup, not a great lineup, and an injury or two will set them back in a big way. Low on the Cardinals as usual.
NL West. Let's remove the Dodgers from the picture. Hey, who's going to win this without the Dodgers actually being in it? The Padres, the Giants, the Diamondbacks, and the Rockies. I think I'm with you, Tom. I like the Giants over the Padres, and that's a big price point. Plus 950 to 17 to 1. I have that same feeling of the Padres where if some things don't go right by the deadline, maybe a lockout looming, Tom, I think some of those guys just could be on the move. I like the Giants better than the Padres here. I think the Giants finish in second in this division.
I was going to say the same thing. If we're moving the Dodgers from the equation, the Giants to finish second would be my pick. I also like the Giants at plus 184 to make the playoffs, which is what that would essentially be implying. So high in the Giants, low in the Padres. Diamondbacks, I love their lineup. Corbin Carroll gets back, but the pitching is just a disaster.
I got to tell you, Tom, you look at the National League, and once again, it's the Los Angeles Dodgers at a plus 115 price to win it. They're the favorite. They're the best team. We get that, but crazier things have happened in the playoffs here, followed by the Mets, the Phillies, and the Cubs. Now, if I were to tell you this, Tom, you can have either the Dodgers at plus 115, or I can give you the field. So take, let's just say, half unit wagers on the Mets, Phillies, and the Cubs. Would you rather take the Dodgers by themselves or the Mets, Phillies, Cubs as a conglomerate? Or I'll give you this, any three teams you can pick in the National League, or is it still the Dodgers to run away with this?
Give me the field. I would take that. If I had an option to take Phillies, Cubs, Mets, or some combination of them, I would take the field ahead of the Dodgers at plus 115 or whatever to win the NL pennant. So, going back to back was hard enough, and they got taken to the brink last year against the Blue Jays. Doing it 3 times in a row is expecting a lot. And this is not to say that they don't have the talent to do so, but the NL pennant is so heavy that I'd rather just go against the grain, and whatever happens, happens.
Yes, there's some teams like Flyers you can take there. Again, we talked about the San Francisco Giants, 27-1 to win the pennant at this point. The Pirates there, 33-1, just intriguing teams. The Reds at 22-1, and how they come up. And then these are the Atlanta Braves. If they can stay healthy, price $950 is going to be a cheap price. And once again, as we say, these numbers are going to evolve throughout the regular season, but always that price point on. So many people are going to have money on the Dodgers that even if they're 5 games back by the time we get to May in their own division, that price point's not going to change a lot. Because, Tom, it's not about the regular season. It's the expectations once you get to late September.
And it's also that books are never going to hang you a plus 200 number on the Dodgers to win the division. Like, even if they start off slow, they'll move the Dodgers, but it'll be down to minus 5,000, minus 700, whatever it is, to win the division. And they're never going to give you a good number on it.
I'm always interested to see how these teams start, because sometimes you get that. Like, everybody thinks they can make the playoffs or win the World Series in the month of April here. Colder temperatures here, as it turns out, like those late March games. I'm interested to see how the Dodgers start, because I do think they could possibly scare a lot of people if they run out to in the first month with like 20 wins out of a possible 30 or so games. Like, here they go, running away with everything now. I'm interested to see who starts like that lead poll. Is it going to be the Giants that push them? Is it going to be the Padres that push them? Some fun things to work out. And also, it's going to be interesting to see that NL East. Who's going to have the lead, Tom, at the end of the month of April between the Mets, Phillies, and the Braves? We've got a good season on the horizon, no doubt about it.
We do, and the NL East is going to be jockeying every single week. It's one series that some team gets swept, the next week the other team gets swept. It's going to be moving back and forth all year long.
I want to say one thing here, Tommy boy. It's been a pleasure talking Major League Baseball with you. We did great work last year. We will continue to do that in the future. Some changes coming up here on Pro Baseball Today, so make sure you stay tuned. But Tommy, loved working every day with you, brother.
Tanking is hurting the NBA right now too, and what we're seeing, like we saw with that Jazz and Orlando game a week ago, how much do you think that's hurting the game?
I can't wait until professional sports in the United States adopts a European model, especially like a Premier League model, and they start doing relegation. The day you start doing relegation, everything changes. Everything will change.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
I ended up adding this since our show started here, Rohit, but his points prop tonight at 20.5 is the same number from the Iowa State game. That's a bit of a mistake, right? When we consider the gap in opponents here. I think Peterson specifically steps up. He needs to. I think he kind of owes this team a great performance.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
I know that Florida lost at home to Auburn, and it's a real thing that happened. So you can't strike it from the record. But if you did, I think Florida's looked like the best team in college basketball for about 2 months. And I think there are a bunch of results that suggest that.
College basketball today. only on SportsGrid.